Who is better, the Munsters or the Addams Family? What was the better show?
I like the Munsters better.
Of course. You too, Sherry?
Yeah, I think I've seen the Munsters
I like
more.
both, but I like the Munsters better.
Addams Family can be really funny too, but Herman Munster is just to die for. He's hilarious.
Fred Gwynn and Al Lewis were pretty genius.
Yeah.
They were amazing.
Yeah, and on Car 54, they were genius too.
And Gomez was great on the Addams Family,
great.
but the best was the Munsters.
I think so.
Yes. Isn't it a mistake to bring the Munsters back to film and try to start a new cast? It's impossible. Am I correct? As a director, you would know this.
We got to talk about Rob Zombie's approach to remaking The Munsters. The Munsters is a franchise that I remember watching a ton as a kid, and I even recently, my parents moved and they found a drawing of Herman Munster and the house from the Munsters that I had done when I was a little kid. So I was excited when I heard that a remake was being done. I was fascinated when I found out it was Rob Zombie who was going to be the one behind it, because Rob Zombie's movies typically aren't kid-friendly.
What's the matter, kid? Don't you like clowns?
And so I was really excited to see his approach. I think Rob Zombie is a really good director. I think he's underrated as a director. I think people tend to discredit a lot of things that he does before it's even out of the gate. We saw that even happen with the Munsters. People discredit Sherry Moon Zombie, who I think is actually an underrated actress. I think her and Zombie have created some really memorable characters together. And so when the Munsters was announced, I was pretty excited. When the first teaser dropped of them reenacting a lot of the intro moments, I was really, really excited because it looked incredible. I love the stark black and white cinematography. And then that trailer dropped.
Rob Zombie, the director of House of a Thousand Corpses, Halloween, and The Devil's Rejects, brings you the greatest love story ever told.
Oh, I don't like the sound of that.
One of the reasons I'm covering this is because I talked about that specific trailer. I watched the trailer. I was really nervous. It didn't seem to work. It just didn't look promising. It was a really rough trailer, and I wasn't the only one that thought that. There were a lot of people that did. And so my expectations dipped quite a bit. But I was still excited, still trusted Rob Zombie, still was interested to see what would happen, and knew he's a big fan of the franchise itself, and wanted to know what would happen. So I watched it, and I have to say, before watching the Munsters movie, I watched on Peacock. You can stream the original series, which I've obviously seen before, but I've been rewatching it with my daughter, who's 5 years old, and she's in love with it. I thought it was great. I watched the Munsters film, Munster Go Home.
I'm Herman Munster. Don't I look frightfully handsome in Technicolor?
Which feels very tonally similar to Zombie's take. And so I have this obviously already familiarity with the Munsters. I revisited it, so I'm back in that world. I'm reacquainting myself with the series, loving that, 60s style television series. And I have to say, this movie complements that aesthetic incredibly well. The pacing, the tone, everything about Rob Zombie's movie is familiar to that universe. And I think when you're talking about the Munsters movie, the criticisms that can be made are all criticisms that could be made of the original show that we pillow with nostalgia. And the things that are positive about it, I think, are there in the original show. Zombie does a great job of treating the original series with immense respect and love and obvious adoration for all of these characters, while also not being afraid to play in kind of the silliness of that world. This isn't a slick remake that throws away everything that made the original show successful. It really isn't afraid to stick with some of those, styles of comedy, some of that 60s era aesthetic, while also pushing maybe the visuals in a slightly, different direction, letting in some of that color. But even with that, a lot of people were critiquing, would this be better in black and white? Number one, I don't think this movie looks better in black and white. The color is something I loved about it. But number two, when you watch like Munster Go Home, the color palette is extremely similar to this movie. Every single shot in this movie, I would say, is extremely beautiful. You could take a still shot of almost every moment in the movie, and just be blown away by the composition, by the production design. The way they took advantage of the Bulgarian locations is beautiful. The castles, the neon lights that they implement, the movie looks freaking beautiful. And I love how it looks. I love the way that Rob Zombie shoots Sherry Moon Zombie. One of the things that's really beautiful about the Munsters, beyond just Rob's love for the Munsters themselves, is Rob Zombie's clear adoration of Sherry Moon Zombie. And I think that's one of the special things about their collaboration, about their marriage, is just how much you can tell Rob Zombie loves Sherry. And the way that Herman sees Sherry Moon Zombie within the Munsters movie, I have to imagine is how Rob sees her. Like the way he takes time to craft these incredible shots to showcase her for a couple minutes, throughout the movie, I think is really, really sweet. And you can see that come through in a really clear way. The cast here brings their A game. I mean, Jeff Daniel Phillips is an amazing Herman Munster. He's incredibly talented. I'm glad to see him doing more and more and more within Rob Zombie's movies. Daniel Roebuck is probably the standout. Many have noted this as the Count. He really feels like Al Lewis reincarnated in a lot of ways. I mean, he's just absolutely amazing. And this honestly isn't my favorite Sherry Moon Zombie performance. I think she's at her best in 3 from Hell and those movies. But she brings her A game here. She's really trying to evoke the same attitude and style of Lily Munster in the original series. And everybody here is giving their all. The cinematography is bringing its all. The direction from Zombie is very familiar to his normal aesthetic, but also it's made for a different audience. So it's interesting seeing him tackle that. I really love this movie. And look, I understand if someone's coming to this, they've never seen the Munsters, they've never been a fan of the original series, and this is their first exposure, they may not be into it. But for anybody who is familiar with this world, loves all these creatures and this lore, this is a really exciting entry, and it honestly is a lot of fun. As we go into the Halloween season, if you're questioning, should I check it out, should I not? Don't listen to all the people who wrote this movie off the minute it was conceived. Don't even take it by its trailer, because the trailer, like I've mentioned on my channel before, wasn't great. Take this movie for what it is and appreciate all that Rob Zombie and company have done to bring the Munsters into a new generation. I'm going to be revisiting this movie again in the future. I really, truly loved it. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of you will as well if you give it a chance and take it on its own merit. But anyway, I wanted to talk about the Munsters. I talked about the trailer. I wanted to talk about the movie, let you know what I thought. Go check it out. It's on Netflix right now. And look forward to seeing what Rob Zombie tackles next.